Hey guys, Quincy from GD Viper Works. I was asked recently what my process is when I prototype new panels. Some of the panels just need to be modified. For example, these right here, Audio 1, Audio 2. The top panels are from PC flights. The bottom part of the panel was as well. But it didn't quite match up with the dimensions of my DZUS rails. And here's another example right here. This engine and jet start panel right here is actually fastened with only 2 DZUS fasteners. And you can see why. They don't align. There it is. So when that happens, I have to make, at a minimum, the rear panel, so that I can mount it back up. Just like I did here with Audio 1 and 2, and many of the other panels I have in here, I kept the top panel because I just don't need to do any extra work that I don't have to do. But I have to take very careful measurements in order to get the holes in the bottom panel to align with the top. And it takes a lot of fitting and a lot of prototyping to get that exact. The other issue is that when putting these consoles in, they weren't exactly designed for this particular tub, and while they fit, they kind of twisted just a little bit. So some of the dimensions are off. They aren't an exact alignment 90 degrees across. So I have to skew some of the holes maybe this way on one side, or maybe even a little wider than normal. Here's some panels that I did make completely. This panel wasn't sold, so I made that one top and bottom. And while I was at it, I decided to add a few extra buttons for some functions that DCS does need. For example, ready pre-contact. And then I can program these for anything else. And most of that information is the same for any of these back here. These blanks. Any of these panels, again, this was PC Flight's top, same here, but all the bottoms are mine. Electric panels also, top and bottom, mine. So let's get into what we do to design and make new panels. At least we'll start with the back of this engine and jet start. As you can see, this panel has already been wired up mostly, except for one light. And again, this is a PC Flight's top and bottom panel. I definitely can reuse the top part, but I have to rebuild the bottom part. So the first thing I'll have to do is take this apart again and take very detailed measurements. And then from those measurements, I'll have to adjust. So first step, let's disassemble this and start measuring. Since I'm trying to replicate this panel, the next step is to draw it out and take very precise measurements. I do it in millimeters, it's more precise. You don't have to do it on graph paper. Just come up with a method to get your precise measurements. Now, these are measurements of the part that does not fit properly. So off of these measurements, now I have to decide how much I need to move things. Specifically, I will need to move, maybe make the panel a little bit wider, and also move these holes here outward to make it fit into the DZUS rails that I have, because they are a little bit askew. This one rail, if you remember earlier, I had 2 DZUS fasteners. They were installed, but this rail here is a little bit like this. So I can widen this out a little bit So this won't be a perfect rectangle underneath, but that's fine. It'll come out a few millimeters. And then along with that, these mounting holes need to move as well. After taking measurements, I use the first piece of software that's involved in the process, and that's Shaper 3D. I use that on my iPad Pro. Having the Apple Pencil is a huge plus to doing this. You can get this software for Windows as well, but I don't think that using a mouse is as precise or natural. So you can see I have a lot of things that I've designed for my pit in here. And this is the one we're going to start working with. I already mentioned that my DZUS rails are not quite aligned. As you can see, I've already started the basic dimension of this panel by adding a little bit of material on that side. And now I'm just going to transpose most of these measurements, and with a few of the changes for the size change of the panel and the shape of the panel. Most importantly, the fastening holes for the DZUS rails, they need to move because they didn't align. But my measurements are based on the incorrect panel. I'll have to adjust that by how much I've changed this. So let's start adding holes and dimensions. The part has now been replicated in Shaper 3D. So you can see I have adjusted this edge already. So it's kind of a rough guess if that's going to fit or not after I cut it out on the laser. You can see the dimensions here. Not that important. Next step is to save this sketch file and then convert it for the laser so I can print a prototype out of cardboard, and then I'll dry fit it into the Simpit. I've imported the part into Lightburn and I've set it up to cut out all of what you see here. This way I can match that up even with the top layer to make sure that they all match. So I'm not just matching up this bottom layer with the actual console. I need it all to line up with the top part of the panel as well. So I'm going to put on my goofy Kim Jong-il glasses to protect my eyes from the laser. And I'm going to hit start. We'll go take a look at that. Let's make sure we have the air turned on. Here we go. All right, let's start cutting this out. So this is the prototype once again. It's quick and easy to do it out of cardboard. This way I don't waste a lot of acrylic and a lot of time, because I don't make the final product on the laser. I make it on a CNC. This being an LED laser, it's actually not very capable for cutting acrylic. Only dark colors. If it's white or if it's clear, you can forget about it. But when I make these panels, the bottom part is clear and the top panel is translucent white. So I don't get a good product out of it, and at least as far as the white's concerned. And regarding the clear just goes right through, because that's all it is. It's just focused light. So that's where the CNC comes in. So the laser is used basically for prototyping, and then after I make the parts on CNC, then I use the laser to engrave the markings on the panel. You can see it's a pretty quick process, even with the details. An alternative, if you don't have a laser, is to just send the file to your printer and then cut it out, try to fit that in. Although larger panels, there will be sag in the paper. It'll be a little more difficult to get exact measurements. So let's take this part out of here. We'll take it upstairs, clean that up, get the other parts out. We'll take it upstairs, we'll compare it to the top panel, and we'll also take a look at it in the console. Make any adjustments to the drawing, and then we'll do it again. All right, at first fit of this panel, it's a little bit off. Down here is good. That's aligned. It looks like some of the mounting holes are a little bit off. These two are definitely off. They need to move. But the part that concerns me the most is not that back panel. I can adjust that. But because I needed to move these holes, you can see that now there's no longer any room for the DZUS fasteners, and I might have to make this entire whole panel on top, which kind of stinks because it just means a lot more work. But you can see there's no room there. So maybe when I put it into the console, I'll actually find out that it didn't need to move that much. So hopefully I'll get lucky. Here's a look at the quick dry fit here. It does need to be adjusted a little bit, and I'm hoping that an adjustment of that corner will result in the top panel actually fitting. So I've marked which way I need to make holes move. I'll go back into Shaper, I'll move them, then I'll start the process with the cardboard again. Can also lengthen the panel just a little bit. See, that's another one that doesn't fit. Millie agrees. Don't you, Millie? I've always liked to say that everything I make, I have to make it 3 times. Well, there's template number 1, number 2, number 3. That's design number 3. And so far, everything looks like it lines up very nicely. Let's check it in the panel. Everything here looks solid. Looks like the DZUS mount holes are pretty well lined up. All the holes in the bottom panel match up with the top panel. I think I can make this. And I don't have to make the top, so that's a good thing. Next step, CNC. Now that the sizing is finalized, the last thing to do is to create a mask for the laser. So when I get my piece of acrylic, it will have paper protecting both sides. And as you can see, this original part was masked off so it could be spray painted. So I did the same here. You can see the mask elements here. And I'll use the laser again to cut through that paper. And once again, like I mentioned before, because this is clear acrylic, the laser will not cut the acrylic. So it will only affect the paper that's on it. And then I'll just peel it off just like this originally was and protect just this area here, protect it for eventual lighting down the road, backlighting, and then paint all the edges. Next step is to go down to the CNC and set this up to be cut there. Using Carveco Maker, I import the file and I set up the tool paths. So everything on the interior will be a cut inside of the black line. The black line is my design. I have a 1.5 millimeter end mill bit that will cut this out. So the first thing I have it set up to do is cut the interiors of all these parts. Then it will come back and cut out the panel. That will be an exterior cut so that I preserve the size of the panel. The CNC is almost ready to go, but not quite yet. Now that I have that file, I have to send it to another piece of software that will actually run the CNC. So I was making a toolpath with this software, Carveco Maker, and then I put it into a format that will be understood by the CNC. I will import it there, and that is Open Builds Control. And then I have to get all the zeros for all the axes on my CNC. X, Y, and Z, Z being the height, so that I can come out with a piece in the end. So let me do that, and then we'll start the CNC. Here's the 3D presentation of the cuts that the CNC will make. Again, this is all based on what Carveco has calculated for this particular setup. This is representing the spindle, and it will come out and start with the holes first along this path. You can see the depth, and then when it's done, it will come back and do the outline. So let's get it started. This is zeroed, and it's ready to go. Run job. This creates quite a mess. I'm not going to video the whole thing, but just to show you how it starts off, we'll go through a few of the holes. This is very precise. And again, I need to do it with a CNC because the laser, or that type of laser, the LED laser, will not cut clear acrylic. But the results with the CNC are fantastic. A blower here so I can get the chips off. Back and take a look at that when it's done. As you can see, this gets pretty messy, and I've already cleaned it off several times. Now you can see the part coming together. Alright, now that this is cut and ready to go, I have it set up once again in light burn. This is for the mask. And I will take it over to the laser. First thing I'll do is cut out another outline. Why do I need to cut out another outline even though I have two here? Because I need an alignment to be perfect when I cut the mask on here. So basically, I'm going to cut it out. It'll leave that hole just like that. I'll take the part. It's backwards for that. But I will set it right back in the hole, and that holds my part perfectly in place. You have to be very careful to align the head so that it's consistent between making this cut and then starting at the same exact position to come in and cut the mask out. But again, the only way to really do that with some sort of consistency is I have to set up the laser again and cut another hole to place that in. All right, we're set up to cut the template out. Special goggles are on. Here we go. So I'm just cutting out the outline again. No need to watch the whole thing. Now we're ready to cut the mask. See those nice fine lines? Next I'll peel off the paper and then onto spray paint. So here's the part after peeling off the mask. You have to be careful though. Not the first time I've done this. I've peeled off the wrong part of the mask. You have to remember to peel off the part where you want the black paint. But it's okay because I was able to stick most of it back on, and that will be hidden behind the top panel. So that's what it looks like there. It's time for paint. I paint the panels. My preferred paint is Krylon Camo Ultra Flat Black. I've tried Rust-Oleum. Sometimes it acts a little bit funny with the acrylic. So I prefer this particular brand. As mentioned before, I kind of started peeling that off. But here's the mask coming off. Not easy to do with one hand on the camera. But you can see that doing it that way leaves some nice crisp lines, except for where I messed up in that corner. But that won't be a big deal. So there it is. There's the part. The original on the bottom, the new homemade one on the top. All we need to do is put the switches back in and mount it into the Simpit. And here's the finished product installed. It's now attached at all four corners. The panel fits perfectly. Again, it's custom made, as all these others are. I need to make a video about this TQS. Yeah, that's finally there. If you've been following the channel, you know that that's been a long time coming. It's been a lot of work too. But I am pulling out some of these panels and redoing some of them. And this guy here, I also made that one completely top and bottom last week. I'm using Raffi 19s. I have to wire those up, put some LEDs, paint it so that it blends in, and then wire it through Arduino so I get all the outputs. If I didn't mention already, it's another panel that I made from scratch just last week, and I made some extra buttons in there. I think I already talked about that though. They're fairly hidden though, so at least they don't stand out as, hey, those don't belong there, you know. But thanks for tuning in, everybody, and that was a video by special request about how I go from nothing to design to outputs, well, prototypes first and then output of the final product. And that's basically how I do it. Thanks for tuning in.